This week's Fargo episode was definitely slower in pace when compared to the opening two of the season, but it finished on a cliffhanger which showed that devastation was set to hit all corners of the show. With us going back to the 16th century and seeing what looked like Ole Munch partaking in a ritual, and also him mirroring something similar in the present day, whilst also witnessing Roy being close to closing in on Dorothy, Nadine, and us also finding out more about the world in which they live in. Let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Fargo Season 5 Episode 3 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Ole Munch's identity. One thing that's clear to see about this season of the show is that the character Ole Munch is not as straightforward of a character as what we initially thought that he was going to be. At first, we were under the impression that he was just some kind of hitman that crooked Sheriff Roy Tillman hired in order to retrieve his wife who fled him 9 years ago. But in actual fact, it looks like Ole Munch might have a dark past himself, or what could only be described as a cursed heritage that's causing him to be the way that he is in the present day. During this episode, there was a flashback to the 1600s in Wales, where we saw that an individual that looked like Ole Munch was munching down on something which was on the body of a deceased person. This is the act and the ritualistic practice of sin eating, and it's actually a thing that occurred throughout history, and specifically in Wales and other areas of Britain in the 17th century. Sin eaters would mostly be people that were considered to come from poorer backgrounds, and in reward for a small financial gain, they'd consume the food that was brought out in a ritualistic fashion over the body of the deceased person. The act of eating the food was said to be representative of them consuming the sins of the dead, meaning that they took them on and took them away from the person that had died. This was something which impacted them in society and would cause them to be feared by others and shunned away. So this could be something that happened to Ole Munch, or it could be an ancestor. It wasn't necessarily confirmed. It would be bold of the show to have this character have this supernatural, non-realistic edge to it, but it's not completely out of the picture. The fact that Ole Munch was seen at the end partaking in a separate ritual which looked like it was connected to the act of what he did in the past, it shows that there is something deeper going on. If it wasn't Ole Munch 500 years ago, then what it shows is that even 500 years later, the cycle of what his ancestor did all of those years ago in taking on the sin in order for financial gain, it's something that's just as prominent in his life now. Ole sins in terms of committing murder in order to get payment, hence why his vendetta against the Tillmans is taking center stage. He put a focus on being paid by Roy even though he didn't complete the job of retrieving Nadine. So the fact that he's leaving notes saying, "You owe me," it shows that there's a similarity there. I think we're going to see the question around his identity getting answered on if Ole Munch was in fact alive 500 years ago as the episode goes on. But for now, revenge is what's on his mind the most. Dorothy's defense. Dorothy was trying her best to get her defense plan in the works, considering that she knew that Roy and his posse would be going after her following her escaping the last time, but we saw that she fell short. When she was going to buy her weapons in the store, the clerk said that they had to wait a week for her to be able to get the 5 grand's worth of protection, due to the checks that would be taking place. So it meant that she was left in a vulnerable state for the time being. With it being Halloween, that meant that the Tillmans had natural cover without looking suspicious, as they could dress up in costume, something which we saw Gator doing. Gator definitely has some kind of inferiority complex that we're seeing taking over his mind. With him wanting to make his father proud, we saw that he took the lead of the job of retrieving Dorothy this time. He woke up and was chanting, "I'm a winner," showing that there's definitely some kind of self-doubt that lies within him. With him being in the van and finding the location of Dorothy's address, and judging by the scene that was present in the trailer for the next episode, it seems like they're going to make an attempt to get inside and to bring her back. Something which I think will go terribly wrong. He only has one hand at the moment. Come on. Ole Munch was far more clinical than what I imagine Gator is, so I think he's going to fall short and disappoint his father once again. But what this will do is show Wayne that his wife might not be who she says she is, and he might start requesting answers. Roy Tillman's lifestyle. Within this episode, we learned more about Roy's lifestyle and the corrupt nature that he has. Not only did he cover up the death of the officer that Munch killed, Alvin, at the gas station, but he's also feeding munitions to his father-in-law, Odin. Something which he mentioned that he had to ease off of because there was a chance that the feds were going to be on his tail. Plus, let's also remember that he hired Ole Munch and he's trying to keep that quiet too. So at the moment, he's not operating within the law. Despite being the sheriff, he's making up the laws himself and hoping that he just doesn't get caught by covering everything up. Odin mentioned the year 1776, which was a time during the American Revolutionary War, and how he wanted to take the country back and that he couldn't do it without munitions. So it feels like this is another arm of Roy's corrupt nature that he's feeding into what we're going to be seeing getting developed as the season goes on. One other interesting thing about Roy Tillman is the fact that it seems like he has multiple wives, or has had multiple wives in the past. There was a section where he was looking over at several different wedding photos that were placed upon the wall, which showed that even though he was in a committed relationship right now to somebody who it seemed loved him dearly and was disappointed at the fact that he didn't want to be intimate with her that night, and also got a heavy focus when we saw that she was on her own putting the twins to bed whilst he was out in the chapel, he still wants to find Nadine and bring her home. Something which I don't know if his current wife even knows about. But maybe there is some kind of polyamorous situation going on between them all. Maybe that could have been a large reason as to why Dorothy wanted to escape, because she wasn't happy with the lifestyle that she was being forced to lead in being with Roy. Dorothy has her reasons for fleeing, and I'm intrigued to see what they're going to be when they're revealed. It very much feels like Lorraine and Danish are going to find out about who Dorothy truly is before we do, considering that they hired a former CIA agent to get snooping into her past. Something which may end up coming between Dorothy and her husband Wayne. Overall review. I thought this was a good episode of the show. Even though it was slow in pace and the runtime was shorter than the previous two, I thought it allowed the episode to breathe and hone in on what it wanted to get across. I'm definitely the most intrigued about the mystery surrounding Ole Munch and how it is that he came to be, and why his murderous instinct is so prominent. I understand they were going to kill him, but he could have just walked away with his life and they probably wouldn't have even gone after him, yet he seems so determined to make them pay. I could see an Ole and Dorothy encountering each other later on in the season at some point, and them not harming each other because they've got one common enemy, which is Roy, something which would outweigh the fact that he once tried to kill her. Roy is another character that's interesting me a lot too. Despite the fact that he appears to be the main antagonist in this season, there's still a lot of mystery around him. We know that he seems religious and he cares about the vows that were made in his marriage, but surely there's more to it than that. Is it his pride? Is it his status? We just don't know yet, not to the level of depth that one would expect. With the episode leaving us on a cliffhanger, it was a true shame, but the next episode genuinely looks like a free-for-all, where deaths are most definitely going to be prominent. Something that I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to unfold. So, there you have it, Fargo Season 5 Episode 3 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.